Assalamualaikum and good day. I'm Dawirah Rahman and my co-writers are Sabaria Abdul Rahim, Bernadette Toby and Muhammad Akmal Hafiz Musa. We are from University Malaysia, Sabah. Today, I will be presenting on our paper entitled BICHRONOUS Online Learning, L2 Learners' Perceptions. The agenda of this presentation are introduction, research questions, literature review, research methodology, findings, discussion, and conclusion. Moving on to the introduction. The abrupt closure of schools and educational institutions due to the COVID-19 has ensued online learning and caused L2 learners to face challenges in acquiring and refining the English language. Issues reportedly experienced by students in learning online, either synchronously or asynchronously, were the struggle to keep pace with assignments and due dates, lack of motivation, lack of self-discipline, social skills, verbal, non-verbal communication, emotional cues, and peer interaction, as well as bad internet connection, inclination of being absent due to unexpected situations, and teacher-centered learning environments. This study therewith attempts to address the issues at the tertiary educational setting by blending synchronous and asynchronous learning termed BICHRONOUS online learning and looks into students' perspectives towards the blend. There are three research questions of this study, which are: what are the L2 learners' perceptions towards BICHRONOUS online learning? What are the challenges encountered by the L2 learners in learning BICHRONOUSly? And what are the suggestions proposed by the L2 learners to improve BICHRONOUS online learning? Moving on to the literature review. Before we look closely at BICHRONOUS online learning, let's have a look first at synchronous and asynchronous online learning's definitions, strengths, and challenges. As for asynchronous online learning, it can be defined as students being able to view and access digital learning materials at their convenience and own pace via a virtual platform. Among the strengths of asynchronous online learning, as mentioned by some researchers, are: it provides students with a flexible learning environment, promotes critical thinking and higher order learning skills, and alleviates students' anxiety and fear to perform right on the spot. Meanwhile, in the light of challenges, some researchers opine that the asynchronous online learning setting causes it is difficult for students to keep up with assignments and due dates. It increases dropout probabilities. Students do not socialize enough with peers, and they experience a sense of isolation, lack of input, and division of verbal and nonverbal communications. In terms of synchronous online learning, it can be defined as learning or teaching that takes place real-time in a virtual classroom. Among the strengths of synchronous online learning, as highlighted by some researchers, are: it emulates a physical classroom, hence inculcating a sense of togetherness among students with their peers and teachers. It instills high motivation to engage students in activities. Teachers are able to relay instant feedback and answers and clarify doubts on the spot. Meanwhile, the challenges of synchronous online learning, as opined by some researchers, are: there is a tendency for students to not be available at set times and days by virtue of unforeseen circumstances, lack of good internet bandwidth. Some students see that synchronous online learning is more to teacher-oriented than student-oriented, lack of students' participation, and less verbal and non-verbal emotional cues. Now, we are looking at BICHRONOUS online learning. What is BICHRONOUS online learning? According to Martin, Polly, and Ritzop 2020, they define BICHRONOUS online learning as the blending of both asynchronous and synchronous online learning, where students can participate in anytime, anywhere learning during the asynchronous parts of the course, but then participate in real-time activities for the synchronous sessions. The conceptual understanding of BICHRONOUS online learning marks BICHRONOUS online learning as a continuum between synchronous and asynchronous online learning. Among the strengths accentuated by some researchers, BICHRONOUS online learning hones and optimizes learning outcomes. It enables students to learn at their own pace. Teachers, meanwhile, can deliver immediate feedback to students. BICHRONOUS online learning also promotes flexible learning, offers opportunity for audiovisual communication, and is regarded as a happy medium by students that stimulates their sense of connection and instills positive attitudes and retentions. Conversely, BICHRONOUS online learning also comes with several challenges in which teachers and students require familiarity with different technologies and comprehension of lesson activity contributions to learning objectives. Moving on to the research methodology. 30 undergraduate second language students taking essential communication skills course in the Center for the Promotion of Knowledge and Language Learning, Universiti Malaysia Sabah, were recruited as respondents for this study. The duration of the study was 5 weeks, and the respondents were selected grounded on the convenient sampling due to physical classes still not permitted for COVID-19 outbreak concerns. In terms of design and instrument, the study utilizes quantitative research design by employing a questionnaire for data collection to 30 respondents where they completed a survey about student perceptions towards learning English as a second language bichronously in their essential communication skills course. The questionnaire, which is the research instrument, was administered in the Google form to respondents through Telegram application, which also functioned as the class main communication platform. The 20-item questionnaire comprises 5 parts of multiple choice, Likert scale, and open-ended questions. The first part provided general instructions to students and explained the definition and examples of BICHRONOUS online learning. The second part, meanwhile, elicited respondents' demographic information on gender and ethnicity, whereas the third part fixated on students' perceptions on BICHRONOUS online learning, where they had to tick the box that best corresponds their choice and rate their options using a 5-point Likert scale. The fourth and fifth parts posed open-ended questions on challenges respondents encountered while adopting BICHRONOUS online learning and suggestions to enhance the blending of synchronous and asynchronous online learning. Moving on to findings. Descriptive analysis was utilized for the quantitative data yielded from items 3 to 18 as frequency counts. In terms of online learning preferences, Table 1 reveals that most of the respondents, which is 26 of them, opted for BICHRONOUS online learning, while 4 respondents went for asynchronous online learning, and none of them favored synchronous mode. Next, Table 2 elicits students' perceptions on BICHRONOUS online learning, which in overall amassed positive views. 15 items were asked to be rated by the respondents according to 5 Likert scale ranging from strongly disagree to strongly agree. 96.7% of 30 students indicated that BICHRONOUS online learning indeed helped achieve learning objectives. The outcomes also inferred that 90% of the respondents perceived classroom activities as flexible and collaborative learning was enhanced with a BICHRONOUS mode. In addition, 83.3% of the students opined videos and audios were clear when learning online BICHRONOUSly. They favored BICHRONOUS online learning as it was easy to connect to the blended mode platforms, signifying that those platforms were user-friendly, therefore contributed to limited interactions among the classroom community. The results also reflect that performing tasks using BICHRONOUS platforms was easy and promoted fun interaction between students and instructors and among peers, thus fairly developed a sense of community within the classroom and enhanced their participation in class activities. As to the use of BICHRONOUS mode in learning English as a second language, most of the respondents were content and denoted that it was efficient, enjoyable, and amplified their English language skills. The qualitative data gathered from the two open-ended questions, on the other hand, were analyzed using thematic analysis. Item 19 posed a question on what problems did you encounter when learning BICHRONOUSly. Table 3 here illustrates that the predicaments faced by some respondents in learning BICHRONOUSly were mostly on poor internet connection, poor time management, and lack of motivation. Meanwhile, Table 4 here displays students' suggestions for improving BICHRONOUS online learning, which are by using myriad forms of learning materials and divergent interactive learning platforms, as well as creating a conducive learning environment. Moving on to the discussion on L2 learners' perceptions towards BICHRONOUS online learning. It can be deduced from the data that most of the respondents preferred BICHRONOUS mode to asynchronous and synchronous, in congruence to previous research that learners frequently preferred blending mode as it can furnish their multiple needs and help refine their aptitudes towards learning first or second language. The data also suggested that BICHRONOUS mode helped achieve lesson objectives because achieving objectives of lesson conveys a learning is effective, thus evading frustration. Furthermore, most of the participated students reckoned BICHRONOUS classes were flexible, provided by its asynchronous nature, and collaborative learning was enhanced by its synchronous feature. The inclination to blended mode was also subjected to the clarity of audio visuals, user-friendly features, and lucid interactions promoted by the blended asynchronous and synchronous platforms. Thanks to those favorable features, fun interaction amongst classroom community was established, which consequently developed a sense of belonging among students, instructors, and peers, thus improved class participation. In the sense of learning English, the respondents felt satisfied with the use of BICHRONOUS mode, as well as found it efficient, enjoyable, and sharpened their English language competency, corroborating the positive findings by Pervin 2016 and Yoon 2021. Though BICHRONOUS online learning was the favorable option by the respondents, they also pointed out several issues in which the primary one is poor internet connection. Low internet connectivity was seen as the major constraint for online classes. The unstable and low bandwidth internet coverage, as highlighted by a respondent, resulted from the rainy season and power outage. Apart from that, since BICHRONOUS mode blends both synchronous and asynchronous, some respondents found it was hard to cope with both modes unless they are self-disciplined and motivated, and probably ascribable to having to juggle course obligations while taking part in other course-related activities, personal and job duties. Lack of motivation and low self-esteem were also among the hindrances of attaining an efficient BICHRONOUS online learning, as accentuated by two of the respondents attributable to factors such as no internet reasons to converse with peers, low self-efficacy, and time and technology limitations. The respondents also came up with several suggestions in which teaching bichronously should deploy legions of learning materials to retain students' motivation to stay engaged in lessons, constituting the utilization of diversified English teaching tools, adopting case study analysis, and related videos on English acquisition, varying lesson activities, and holding offline asynchronous quizzes at the end of every lesson. They also proposed the use of different interactive platforms consuming less data and suggested a conducive online learning environment by being friendly to each other and promoting peer interaction during lessons. A convenient digital learning environment can also be established once good internet access is achieved, as orated by a respondent. All in all, these suggestions are relatable to what has been pointed out by Gax et al. 2020 that multi-layered aspects such as scrutinous preparation of the course outline that cater to educators' and learners' requirements comprising technology, workload, and accessibility, efficacious communication, connection, and engagement, and supportive learning environment have to be contemplated in creating an effective virtual teaching. As a conclusion, the findings exhibit that L2 learners perceived the blending of synchronous and asynchronous online learning, or in other words, bichronous online learning, positively in the sense of achieving lesson objectives, clear audio-visual settings, easy connection to the platforms, convenient to use, promoting clear communication and fun interaction within class community, and enhancing class participation. In terms of self-efficacy, students felt satisfied with and enjoyed the use of bichronous mode in acquiring English, signaling that it was an efficient English learning tool. Those perceptions were indeed a help in expanding a greater comprehension of the connections between content, pedagogy, technology, and the context of the existing instructional design in second language teaching. Despite garnering positive perceptions among learners, the issues faced and suggestions proposed to perk up bichronous online learning ought to be cogitated as measures to develop a better understanding of how bichronous online learning could be ameliorated. As evinced in the findings, leading challenges to be addressed were internet coverage issues, poor time management, and less motivation. While major solutions suggested by the respondents were using assorted learning tools, enticing interactive digital platforms, and promoting a jovial interaction among peers with stable internet coverage. This research gave inklings to the researcher to devise suitable and optimal second language lesson activities to captivate second language learners' interest, henceforth increase their motivation to learn English bichronously. It is recommended that more researches on bichronous online learning be conducted with more respondents, inclusive students and educators, to obtain holistic findings and suggestions in leveling the blended mode up. And that brings us to the end. I'd like to thank you for your time and attention today.